Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
Here is the essay, José, Martí's Our America, published in 1889, stands as a powerful articulation of Latin American identity and a call for unity against the looming shadow of external influence, particularly from the United States. This essay offers a detailed analysis of Martí's work, examining its specific claims and arguments section by section in order to assess their validity, coherence, and enduring relevance within the context of the late 19th century and beyond. The intent is to illuminate not only what Martí argued, but also precisely how he constructed those arguments and how those arguments resonated, as revealed through both contemporary reactions and later interpretations. Section 1. The Critique of Imported Governance. Martí begins with a sharp critique of Latin American nations' uncritical adoption of foreign models of governance. He asserts that applying political systems and legal structures developed in Europe or the United States represents a fundamental error, a misdiagnosis of the unique social and historical realities of the region. Martí contends this importation of foreign systems, without adequate adaptation to local circumstances, leads to instability and hinders the genuine progress of Latin American societies. He paints a stark picture of intellectuals and politicians blindly imitating foreign ideals, constructing republics on paper that bear little resemblance to the lived experiences of the populace. Martí claims this misguided approach neglects the indigenous character of the region, overlooking the rich culture and traditions that should form the bedrock of national identity and political organization. The argument possesses a certain undeniable force, reflecting the widespread struggles of newly independent nations to establish stable and effective governance following centuries of colonial rule. It also foreshadows the subsequent criticisms of dependency theory, which emphasize the persistent economic and political inequalities perpetuated by the imposition of external models on developing nations. Martí's critique rests on the implicit assumption that a nation's political system must organically arise from its own unique historical and cultural context. This assumption, while intuitively appealing, requires careful consideration. While cultural context undeniably influences governance, the claim that foreign models are inherently unsuitable overlooks the potential for selective adaptation and the universal appeal of certain principles such as democracy and individual rights. The effectiveness of any political system depends less on its origin and more on its implementation and its ability to address the specific needs and aspirations of the population. Section 2. The necessity of knowing our America. Martí advances the imperative for Latin Americans to understand their own history, geography, and culture as a prerequisite for self-determination. He argues that ignorance of our America, its diverse populations, its unique challenges, and its untapped potential leaves the region vulnerable to manipulation and exploitation by external forces. He calls for a deep and sustained engagement with the realities of the continent, urging intellectuals and leaders to immerse themselves in the lives of ordinary people and to learn from the accumulated wisdom of past generations. Martí emphasizes the importance of studying the indigenous civilizations of the Americas, not as relics of the past, but as sources of valuable lessons for the present. He suggests that these ancient cultures offer alternative models of social organization, resource management, and community solidarity that could inform the development of more sustainable and equitable societies. This emphasis on indigenous knowledge represents a significant departure from the prevailing Eurocentric perspectives of the time. Martí challenges the dominant narrative that equates progress with westernization, advocating instead for a path of development rooted in the unique cultural heritage of Latin America. The claim that self-knowledge is essential for self-determination is difficult to dispute. A nation that is unaware of its own strengths, weaknesses, and historical trajectories is ill-equipped to navigate the complex challenges of the modern world. However, Marty's argument could be interpreted as promoting a form of cultural nationalism that risks excluding or marginalizing those who do not fit neatly into the idealized vision of our America. A more nuanced approach would acknowledge the diversity and hybridity of Latin American cultures, recognizing that national identity is a constantly evolving process shaped by a complex interplay of internal and external influences. Section 3. The dangers of imitation and the valorization of originality. Martí elaborates on the perils of blindly imitating foreign models, suggesting that such mimicry stifles creativity and hinders the development of genuine Latin American thought. He celebrates originality and authenticity, urging Latin American artists, writers, and intellectuals to forge their own unique paths, unburdened by the constraints of European or North American aesthetic norms. Marty's call for originality resonates with the broader modernist movement, which emphasized the importance of breaking with tradition and forging new artistic forms to express the unique experiences of the modern world. However, Marty's argument also reflects a deeper concern about cultural dependency and the threat of cultural domination. He sees the uncritical adoption of foreign cultural forms as a form of intellectual colonization, one that undermines the self-esteem and self-confidence of Latin American societies. Martí proposes that Latin American artists and intellectuals should draw inspiration from their own cultural heritage, transforming and reinterpreting traditional forms to create something new and uniquely their own. This emphasis on originality and authenticity can be seen as a form of cultural resistance, a means of asserting Latin American identity in the face of external pressures. While originality is undeniably a valuable asset in any cultural endeavor, Marty's argument risks oversimplifying the complex processes of cultural exchange and influence. All cultures are shaped by interactions with other cultures, and the borrowing and adaptation of foreign ideas and forms can be a source of innovation and creativity. The key lies not in rejecting foreign influences outright, but in critically engaging with them and adapting them to suit local needs and aspirations. A more nuanced approach would recognize the value of both originality and synthesis, celebrating the creative fusion of different cultural traditions. Section 4. The call for continental unity against external threats. Martí issues a passionate plea for Latin American unity as a bulwark against the growing threat of external intervention, particularly from the United States. He warns of the expansionist ambitions of the United States, portraying it as a ravenous power hungry for territorial and economic domination. Martí believes that only through collective action can Latin American nations resist this threat and safeguard their independence. He envisions a united front of Latin American countries working together to promote economic cooperation, cultural exchange, and political solidarity. Marty's call for unity reflects the historical context of the late 19th century, a period of increasing U.S. intervention in Latin America. The Monroe Doctrine, which proclaimed the Americas off-limits to European colonization, had been increasingly interpreted as a license for U.S. dominance in the region. Martí accurately identifies the growing economic and military power of the United States and its potential to undermine the sovereignty of Latin American nations. Marty's argument is predicated on the assumption that Latin American countries share a common destiny and common set of interests. While there is undeniably a shared cultural heritage and a shared history of colonial oppression, the reality of Latin American politics is far more complex. The region is characterized by significant political and economic disparities, as well as long-standing rivalries between different countries. Achieving genuine unity requires overcoming these divisions and forging a common vision for the future. A more nuanced approach would acknowledge the challenges of regional integration, while still emphasizing the importance of cooperation and solidarity in the face of external threats. Section 5. The warning against the Colossus of the North. Martí paints a cautionary picture of the United States, describing it as a materialistic and expansionist power whose cultural and economic influence poses a grave threat to Latin American identity. He warns against the seductive allure of US consumerism and the corrosive effects of its cultural dominance, arguing that these forces undermine traditional values and erode the bonds of community. Martí characterizes the United States as a civilization driven by a relentless pursuit of wealth and power, lacking the spiritual depth and cultural refinement of Latin America. This depiction reflects a deep-seated ambivalence towards the United States, a mixture of admiration for its economic dynamism and deep suspicion of its political and cultural ambitions. Martí's argument is rooted in a concern about the homogenizing effects of globalization and the threat of cultural imperialism. He sees the spread of US culture as a form of subtle domination, one that undermines local traditions and erodes the cultural diversity of the world. However, Martí's characterization of the United States is undoubtedly a simplification. The United States is a complex and multifaceted society, characterized by a wide range of cultural and intellectual traditions. While consumerism and materialism are certainly prevalent, they do not represent the entirety of American culture. A more nuanced approach would acknowledge the diversity and dynamism of the United States, while still recognizing the potential for its economic and cultural power to exert undue influence on Latin American societies. Section 6. The importance of indigenous identity and cultural synthesis. Martí champions the preservation and integration of indigenous cultures into the fabric of Latin American national identity. He insists that neglecting this foundational element weakens society and leaves it susceptible to external manipulation. He advocates for a synthesis of indigenous traditions with the positive aspects of European influence, creating a uniquely American identity that is both rooted in its past and open to the future. Martí's emphasis on indigenous identity represents a significant departure from the prevailing Eurocentric perspectives of the elite during his time. He argues that indigenous cultures possess valuable knowledge and wisdom that can contribute to the development of more just and sustainable societies. Martí's vision of cultural synthesis acknowledges the historical reality of European influence in Latin America, but at the same time emphasizes the importance of asserting indigenous cultural values and perspectives. He proposes a dynamic and evolving national identity, one that is constantly shaped by the interplay of different cultural traditions. A crucial consideration surrounds the precise mechanism of this synthesis. How do societies actively integrate indigenous traditions without romanticizing or appropriating them for political gain? The challenge lies in creating spaces for genuine dialogue and collaboration between different cultural groups, ensuring that indigenous voices are heard and respected. While Martí's vision is admirable, its practical implementation requires careful attention to issues of power, representation, and cultural sensitivity. Section 7. The role of education in fostering self-reliance. Martí emphasizes the crucial role of education in cultivating self-reliance and critical thinking skills among Latin Americans. He argues that education must be geared towards understanding the specific challenges and opportunities of the region, rather than simply replicating European or North American curricula. He advocates for practical and relevant education that empowers individuals to contribute to the economic and social development of their communities. Martí's emphasis on education aligns with the broader Enlightenment ideals of progress and human emancipation. He believes that education is the key to unlocking the potential of individuals and societies, enabling them to overcome ignorance, poverty, and oppression. He also anticipates the modern emphasis on vocational training, suggesting that education should equip individuals with the skills needed to succeed in the workforce. However, the critical element becomes the nature of the curriculum and the pedagogical methods employed. Is education designed to promote critical thinking and independent judgment, or is it simply a tool for indoctrination and social control? Martí's vision requires an educational system that fosters creativity, innovation, and a commitment to social justice. Section 8 Rejection of racial hierarchy and advocacy for equality. Martí explicitly rejects notions of racial hierarchy and advocates for equality among all people, regardless of their ethnic or cultural background. He condemns discrimination and prejudice, arguing that they undermine social cohesion and hinder the progress of society. Martí insists that true patriotism means embracing the diversity of the Latin American population and working towards a more just and equitable society for all. This stance represents a bold and progressive position, especially considering the prevailing racial attitudes of the late 19th century. Martí challenges the pseudoscientific theories of racial superiority that were used to justify colonialism and imperialism. He asserts that all human beings are created equal and that racial differences should not be used as a basis for discrimination or oppression. The assertion of equality resonates powerfully with the aspirations of marginalized groups throughout Latin America. It also anticipates the struggles for civil rights and social justice that would define the 20th century. However, achieving genuine equality requires more than just legal pronouncements. It requires addressing the underlying economic and social inequalities that perpetuate racial discrimination. Effective actions also necessitate dismantling systemic barriers to opportunity and promoting genuine integration and inclusion. Section 9 The Power of Culture as Resistance. Martí illustrates the power of cultural expression as a form of resistance against external domination. He argues that art, literature, and music can serve as powerful tools for preserving cultural identity and promoting national pride. He encourages Latin American artists and intellectuals to create works that reflect the unique experiences and perspectives of the region, challenging the dominant narratives imposed by foreign powers. Martí's emphasis on culture as resistance mirrors the broader phenomenon of cultural nationalism, which emerged in many parts of the world during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He believes that culture can serve as a unifying force, bringing people together around a shared sense of identity and purpose. This emphasis on culture possesses particular relevance in the context of globalization and the increasing dominance of global media. Cultural expression provides a means of resisting the homogenizing effects of globalization and preserving the diversity of human experience. However, it is important to acknowledge that culture can also be used as a tool for manipulation and control. Art, literature, and music can be used to promote nationalist ideologies, glorify violence, and suppress dissent. The challenge lies in ensuring that cultural expression remains a force for liberation and empowerment, rather than a tool for oppression. Section 10 Martí's vision of a unified America as a moral imperative. Martí concludes by reiterating his vision of a unified America as a moral imperative. He believes that only through collective action and a shared commitment to justice and equality can Latin American nations overcome the challenges they face and secure a prosperous future. He calls upon all Latin Americans to embrace their common heritage and work together to build a better world. Martí's concluding call for unity reflects his deep-seated belief in the power of human solidarity. He believes that individuals and nations are stronger when they work together towards common goals. This vision of a unified America remains a powerful and inspiring ideal, even in the face of the complex realities of contemporary Latin American politics. The practicality of such a vision, however, warrants further investigation. What specific mechanisms or institutions could facilitate greater cooperation and integration among Latin American nations? How can differences in political systems, economic structures, and cultural values be reconciled in order to create a truly unified entity? While Martí does not provide specific answers to these questions, His concluding call serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of striving for a more just and equitable world. In conclusion, José Martí's Our America remains a seminal work in Latin American thought, offering a profound critique of colonialism, cultural imperialism, and political dependency. His section-by-section arguments, though rooted in the specific historical context of the late 19th century, continue to resonate with contemporary concerns about globalization, cultural identity, and the struggle for self-determination. While some of his claims may be open to debate, his passionate call for unity, equality, and cultural authenticity continues to inspire generations of Latin Americans to forge their own path towards a more just and equitable future. His warning against the seductive allure of foreign models, coupled with his emphasis on the importance of indigenous knowledge and cultural synthesis, provides a valuable framework for navigating the complex challenges of the modern world. Martí's enduring significance lies not only in what he said, but also in the enduring power of his words to ignite the imagination and inspire action. He leaves a legacy of persistent questioning, self-reflection, and collective action, a legacy applicable to the Americas and beyond.
We really appreciate you tuning in to this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.